Hey friends, today I'm going to show you two different ways to shell cowpeas, or really any kind of field pea or beans. First, I'll show you how to shell fresh peas by hand, and then I'll share a neat trick I use for shelling large batches of dried peas quickly with some simple tools. So, let's dig in. First, let's look at how to shell fresh beans by hand. When it comes to fresh peas, I like to sit down with a couple of bowls and take my time. I keep one bowl for the unshelled peas and for the shell beans as I go along. And I keep another bowl or a box or a bucket or something for the empty shells. You don't want to throw away these empty bean pods because they're full of nitrogen and they're great for making fertilizer. All you have to do is compost them. Here's what I like to do. I like to shell them by first taking and I pinch the small end, one tip of the bean pod off. It doesn't really matter which end you go, whichever seems like it is the one that needs to be pinched. And then I just sort of peel it, and you see how it sort of has that string that kind of stays attached? And that just sort of unzips it like a zipper. And then I'm just simply going to sort of bend it back on itself. And you see that? A pea already popped out. And then I just let the beans pop out into the bowl as I sort of work my way down the beans. Let me show you another one. Try to get a little closer here where you can see it. So pinch, peel, pull that string as far as it'll go. And that sort of opens up. It's still closed, but if you just put a little bit of pressure there, then you start to get it to pop out. And now you can just sort of work your fingers down as you bend it back on itself, and the peas will pop out. Now you're going to keep those peas down close to the bucket because otherwise they'll go everywhere. But if you keep them down close to the bucket, they'll pop right in there. I'm just going to shell them right back in here, and then as I'm emptying out the empty pods, by the time I get done, this bowl will only be full of shelled peas. And then all of my empty shells will be in this box, and I'll put that in the compost pile. And once you've shelled all your peas, you can cook them fresh, which is one of my favorite ways to cook them, or you can freeze them to enjoy them for later. You can also dry them if you'd like, but I usually don't need to because I have so many dried peas from the next method that I'm going to show you that I don't need any more dried peas. So let me tell you about how you can shell dried beans with a drill and a bucket. If you've got a big harvest, shelling by hand can take forever. And that's where dried beans and a simple homemade tool really shine. And this will work for all kinds of peas, beans, field peas, cream peas, black-eyed peas, lima beans, even dried green beans or pinto beans. Start by making sure your peas or beans are fully dried. You can let them dry right on the vine if you've got good weather and good airflow, or you can pick them and spread them out in a dry place until they're good and crisp. If you're not sure if they're dry enough, just let them sit a few extra days in a dry place with good airflow to make sure. The key is making sure there's no moisture left. That's important because it will help the beans shell better, and also it will keep them from spoiling. And you'll also notice that this fresh pea, see how it's flexible. So this is not going to shell in the method I'm going to show you for dried beans because it's too flexible. But once it's dry, then it becomes very brittle and it'll just crack right open and the dry beans will pop out. Now for the fun part, the drill flail sheller. Here's what you'll need. You'll need a 5-gallon bucket with a lid and a second 5-gallon bucket. You're going to need an electric drill, a threaded rod about 1/4 of an inch in diameter, and long enough to reach from the lid down to the bottom of the bucket, plus about 4 more inches. For a standard 5-gallon bucket, this will be about 18 inches long. You're going to need 2 hex nuts that fit on your rod. Whatever the thread's on your rod, you'll need nuts that will fit on that thread. And you're going to need a short length of chain with links big enough to slip over the end of whatever size rod you have. It doesn't have to be anything major. You don't want a big heavy chain, just a simple chain like you might use to hang a plant off of a hook in your balcony. Now you need your chain to be long enough to cover the diameter of the bucket. You want it to go from one side wall to the other side wall. You'll also need a fan. Standard box fan will work fine. Now to make the flail, put 1 hex nut on the end of the rod and then slip the rod through the center link of the chain and then tighten it in place between the other nut. Then chuck the other end of the rod into your drill. Fill one of the buckets about 1/4 of the way or 1/3 of the way full with dried pea pods. Put a lid on it. Now this lid needs to have a hole in it that's wide enough for you to slide your rod through it. And then a little bit wider would be helpful so that you can also get the chain down through the hole in the lid. Now you want to run the drill at full blast for a few minutes. The chain spins around inside the bucket, cracking open all of the dried pods and freeing the peas. And in no time, you'll have a bucket full of beans mixed with empty shells. But we're not done yet. We need to somehow separate the beans from the chaff, all of the empty bean pods. And that's where winnowing comes in. Set up a second empty bucket and a fan. Position the fan so it blows across the top of the empty bucket. Then slowly pour the mixture of beans and shells from the first bucket into the second. The lightweight shells and dust blow away, while the heavier beans drop straight down into the bucket. You may need to repeat this a few times, but each pass gets your beans cleaner and cleaner. In the end, you'll have nothing left but dried beans ready for storage. Just make sure they're completely dry before you put them away. Stored properly, dried beans will last for a long time. Personally, I like to pressure can my dried beans. I'll save up enough dried beans until I have enough, and then I will pressure can them. That way they're quick and easy to cook later. Because later, all you got to do when you're cooking dinner and you're in a hurry, you just pull one of those cans of beans off the shelf, pop it open, and warm it up, and it's ready to go. I made a video about how to pressure can dried beans, and I'll leave a link in the description. Matthew 3:12 says, "His winnowing fork is in his hand, and he will clear his threshing floor, gathering his wheat into the barn and burning up the chaff with unquenchable fire." You know, the Bible often talks about winnowing, tossing grains up into the air so that the wind can blow away the chaff, sort of like we did with our beans. But when we invite God to take control of our life and to help us become the people he wants us to be, we invite him to winnow our hearts. It's like asking the Holy Spirit to blow away the parts of us that don't belong. The sin and selfishness, the worries and the things that weigh us down. We want to get rid of all of that stuff that doesn't belong and only keep the good. But we don't do it. The Holy Spirit does it for us. It's not always easy, though, to let go. But we can trust that God knows what he's doing. He sees his original design for our lives. And his desire is always to bring out the very best in us. Just like the beans that are left after the chaff is gone, we come out cleaner, purer, and ready to be used for his purpose. I want to thank you for watching today. I hope this was helpful and I hope it was meaningful. Now, let's all get out there and let's grow and be fruitful.